Joe Douglas did a phenomenal job drafting in 2022. Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, all these studs are eventually going to have to get paid. Well, the NFL just changed something that I think could help us. Jets! All right, welcome in, gang. Before we hop into this video, I just want to say we have a handful of tickets left for our group buy, Jets Broncos Week 4. We're hanging out with Tailgate Joe before the game. Food, drink, music, on field after the game. If you want to hang out with myself, Matt O'Leary, and Green Bean, tickets over at talkinjets.com. But let's hop into today's video, and this is something that I haven't really seen too many people talk about, but it really perked my ears up because it gives the Jets a really strong possibility of holding on to all their key players that I think a lot of us are a little concerned about. We've got Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Breece Hall, Jermaine Johnson, Michael Carter II, AVT, all these young players that we would really like to retain and help build our roster going forward. But there's just a lot of issues that go into this. So before I get into the breakdown of it, let's listen to the clip so you guys can hear exactly what I'm excited about.
It's not just infrastructure, although certainly the ability to improve stadiums, improve facilities, that's really come into focus more, I would say, the last 2 or 3 years than, I don't know, at any time I can remember. And that having that cash on hand to do that is helpful. Also expected to be helpful when it comes to player contracts. I mean, if you fully fund a big-time player contract, you have to take the cash, you have to put it in essentially an account, and it has to sit there while it's fully guaranteed. This allows more teams to take more, just to have more cash if they need it for these contracts. The other thing I would say, and you touched on this as well when you talk about the valuation of some of these franchises, every team that does this, every team that accepts the up to 10% of this, essentially outside private equity money is going to get a new valuation at a time when teams are going to be scrambling to get money to invest. I would expect this to raise the value of every franchise that decides to do this, probably raise the value of every franchise anyway, which is something that is very good. And I don't know how many teams we're going to get sold over the course of the next 10 years, but if one does, all it is going to do is raise the price, which is good for the team, good for everyone. The league sort of embracing a little bit of a new day here in a somewhat different and more limited way than maybe some of the other sports are.
Now, I know this isn't super exciting on like the face level of it, but bear with me here. I'll kind of explain. Private equity firms are going to be able to buy up to a 10% stake in different teams across the league, which, it sounds really good. He mentions infrastructure. If you want to build new stadiums, you're going to have a little bit more of an influx of cash added to your team. Not to mention it raises the value of every team in the event a team wants to be sold. But the big key part of this is with player contracts and how you invest money into your team and keep all these players. The one issue for the Jets, we drafted all these guys in one draft, which is a fantastic problem to have because it's really tough to try and re-sign all those players in the same year. Now, the issue that teams run into is with guaranteed money. And it's not so much the contracts, because you can always say like, oh, you can figure out the cap space, you can maneuver around it. But when you have to hand out a lot of guaranteed money all at once, it has to go into what's called an escrow account. If you guys have purchased a house or something like that, you're aware of what that is. It's a lump sum of money that has to go in there to basically cover, I think it's like taxes and all that other stuff. But basically for NFL contracts, when there's guaranteed money tied to a contract, so let's say Sauce Gardner wants to sign $100 million or let's call it 5-year, $125 million with $100 million guaranteed. Let's just call that the contract for easy math. $100 million. Even though that's $25 million a year over 5 years, $100 million of guaranteed money has to immediately be put in an escrow account to be held on to basically guarantee that player that guaranteed money is going to be there. This was a rule that was put into place when the NFL was definitely in a little more flux a long time ago. This doesn't really impact the league right now because there's so much money, but it's a rule that's kind of on the books still that I'm not really sure if it's meant to just sort of lower player salaries as an excuse to not, have to be able to deal out all this money. But either way, if you wanted to pay all your players, if you could figure out the cap gymnastics of it all, the guaranteed money portion is what's really, really tough for teams. Because if you have Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter II, and friggin' AVT all getting money and guaranteed money at that, Woody Johnson's going to have to shell out all of that guaranteed money right up front, even if the cap hits are all moderately, I shouldn't even say moderately, but even if they're all like within check, if you can make everything work within the salary cap, with this change, This allows private equity firms to come in and have more cash flow to invest into the team, whether that be way of infrastructure, like they said, maybe you want upgrades to your stadium, but you could also hold on to some really young players, which begs the question, what exactly is a private equity firm, and can Jet fans buy 10% of the New York Jets so we can keep all the players that we want? We would have a 10% equity stake in our team. I think that should happen. We should do that. I'm not gonna start a GoFundMe, but we should totally do that. If you think we should do that, leave a comment down below. But this is really cool. Look, I really want to retain all our young players, but I'm realistic in the fact that we have this 2-year window with Aaron Rodgers. You got them on the young rookie contracts. Once 2026 comes around, that's when a lot of our dead cap money with Aaron Rodgers and some of these other players is really going to come due, and it's going to be a pinch point when it comes to trying to re-sign all of these contracts. And being able to spread it all out and get all these guys locked in without losing them to other teams that didn't draft them. There are players, get your grubby little mitts off of them. It's going to be a tough thing. It's going to be a tough task. But with this change, I think it's going to allow the Jets to keep some of their young players, and not just the Jets. It's going to be every other team, which means this could impact the way some teams handle free agency, which could, I guess, be sort of a negative thing, because if a lot of the top names don't wind up making it to free agency anymore, which I guess if you're a really good player, your team tries to re-sign you anyway, but this could throw a little bit of a wrench in terms of how teams maneuver around the finances of not just their players, but the infrastructure to their stadium. So I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. Is this a big deal? Is it something that I'm maybe just overstating? I'm a nerd when it comes to contracts, so I'm probably speaking to the minority here. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Drop a green heart if you made it all the way to the end of this video. And which players, if you had to prioritize, which players would you say from that 2022 draft class in order would be the most important to re-sign? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets. Jets!